Maybe you would love to get into poetry, but you don't really know how. You feel intimidated, you don't know where to start. Well then, you're in the right place. Hi friends, my name is Bart, welcome back to the channel, and this week we'll be talking all about getting into poetry. I read quite a lot of poetry myself. I even have some poems that I wrote myself that have been published. But I've been dreading to make this video, because poetry is a very personal thing. A lot of you, however, wanted to make me this video, because poetry is one of those things that a lot of people would like to get into, but don't really know how. So I gave it a long thought and I came up with this reading guide for you, an absolute beginner's guide to poetry, with a few handy tips for advanced readers as well. As always, I will be linking all the books that I talk about down below in the description box, so you can do your own research. Ready? Let's get poetical. Now, my first tip to anyone who would love to get into poetry is to let go of all those preconceptions. Poetry is a lot like classical literature. It is not as difficult or as elite as you think. In fact, the way a lot of people seem to have this love-hate relationship with poetry has everything to do with the way poetry is taught in schools. Poems became those really strange literary puzzles with a rhyme scheme and certain types of poems and literary techniques that you had to identify. But it's the contrary of all that. And I get it. Those are the things that are easy to grade, but they have nothing to do with experiencing poetry. So let go of all of those preconceptions. Yes, there is some poetry that you would love. Yes, there is some poetry that you will understand. And yes, there is absolutely poetry for everyone. So let it go and give poetry a chance. The second tip is a tip that a lot of people are a bit anxious about, but it is to read poetry aloud. You don't read poetry like you would read a book. In fact, you want to read it slower. Our eyes and brain are trained to skim over a text, skip a few words and then fill in the gaps because we have this predictive text in our heads. But with poetry, every single word is curated and selected to be there. So slow yourself down and read aloud. It gives you a feel for the momentum and the rhythm and the cadence of a poem. It forces you to almost feel the words in your mouth and experience them, really. Sometimes I even walk around while reading poetry, just to feel that certain rhythm in it. So do give it a chance. Just lock yourself away in a room if you're a bit shy about it, but do read it aloud. My third tip is linked to the second one, and it is to experience and listen to poetry. Now, in my book, poetry isn't another form of literature. No, it is a performance art, and it has to be experienced and consumed as what it is, a performance. There are tons of superb poetry performances online, and I will link some of my own favorites down below for you to experience, to go and watch and to listen to. Because in the end, that's what poetry is all about. It is a performance art and it needs to be performed. If you think you know poetry, wait until you've heard David Tennant read from Shakespeare. Or see Michael Sheen perform Do Not Go Gently Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas. It's performance art at its peak. Tip number 4 is to pick your moment in the day and pick the place you're reading at. Like I said, poetry is not like reading just another book. It is not about crunching another chapter or reading it from cover to cover in one sitting. It is all about reading 1 or 2 poems and then thinking about them for the rest of the day. So why not make poetry a part of your morning routine? Perhaps when you're having that first coffee or tea. Pick yourself a quiet place, somewhere where you're comfortable. Somewhere where you can read out loud. Reading poetry is a bit like self-care. You need to make time for it. And you're absolutely worth it. And then number 5, my last tip is do not overanalyze. Not all poetry needs to be understood. Who cares if your meaning is different from the meaning the author had? Your own thoughts about the poem, your own feelings around the poem are valuable and valid. And even if you don't feel anything or have no thoughts about it, that's fine as well. That's maybe a sign this poet isn't for you and you need to try someone else. We really need to stop over-analyzing poetry and start learning to enjoy and experience it. Now, with those quick 5 tips under our belt, where do you start? which poet, which book. Well, I'm not going to recommend you a particular poet because, like I said, poetry is very personal. I have my own personal favorites, and if you would like to hear more about them, let me know in the comments. I might make a video about it in the future. No, I'm going to recommend you some anthologies. Anthologies are basically collections of different poems from different poets, and they allow you to almost taste very different things. Like different dishes in a buffet that you can sample and see what you like best before you go back for more of that dessert. Anthologies allow you to see what you like best. Maybe you're into classical poetry, or maybe you're more into modern poetry, even jam poetry. Anthologies are a first great step into your poetry journey. The first one I have for you is a poem for every night of the year, and it literally does what it says on the tin. It is a great collection of both classical and modern poetry from all different kinds of poets, and it allows you to incorporate poetry into your daily routine. It is a great book with a great selection of poems, so why not give it a go? The second one is Set Me on Fire, a poem for every feeling by Risbridger. This book has a poetic answer to any emotion you might feel. Maybe you're sad. There is a poem. Maybe you're angry. Well, there is a poem. Maybe you're hungry. There definitely is a poem. This is another great selection curated for both a beginner and a more advanced poetry reader. It is a book to pick up now and then and mirror whatever you're feeling. So do give it a try, because trust me, if you're feeling angry, that will certainly show in your performance when you're reading out loud. Third anthology I would recommend is The Zoo of the New by Penguin Books. It is one of the best attempts that I've ever seen to collect poems from the antiquities up till now. It attempts to identify those timeless poems all the way from the antiquities with Sappho up to some very recent and surprising discoveries. It is a great collection for anyone who wants to span both classical and modern poetry. And it is a book that every literary lover should have in their collection. The Zoo of the New by Penguin Books. My last recommendation for today is Poetry by Heart by Andrew Motion. This is a selection that again spans both classical and modern poetry. This is a collection that is carefully curated to contain poems that are ideal to read out loud and learn by heart. It has funny poems, sad poems, love poems, war poems, you name it. Some of them are very, very well known, others are quite unknown to the public, but they all have that oratory quality. They need to be read out loud. So if you need some help with reading out loud, or you just want to impress your family or friends at the next barbecue, well then this is the anthology for you. Now I want to hear from you. Are you a poetry lover? Or are you one of those poetry curious that doesn't just know where to start? Do you have a favorite poet or a favorite poem perhaps? Let me know down below in the comment box and we'll talk some more poetry. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, do give us a like and a subscribe, because it makes all the difference for the channel. That was it for me for this week. Thank you for watching. Bye.